Hey guys, welcome to episode 22 of Aeroland. In the last episode I started building the Rapids ride in the western area. And in this episode I'm simply going to continue building the ride. I'm starting off with the queue line, finishing up that area, and the station of the ride as well. So for the station I wanted to have like a wooden building and I wasn't really sure where to start. I placed these beams all around the station, but not too many, just in the places where they would actually make sense. And I wanted to have the roof like two different angles, two different slopes. And I used these metal roofs for the ends and a wooden tile roof for the middle part. And I made sure the whole roof was supported by these beams. As you can see here, I'm using these beams to like make supports for the roof. And I wanted to have these supports like throughout the whole station, also on the inside. So at first I built the same support structure on the other side, and when I finished this side I realized that it was kind of dumb of me to like make two separate layers of these supports, because I can just copy it over for each layer inside the building, if that makes any sense. I'll show you in a minute probably, like this. It didn't match up, so I deleted the other side and decided to copy this over. Like so. For the walls I wanted to use like wooden walls, but the normal walls didn't really fit, so I chose to use these small walls to make like the base of the wall and to make like custom windows in between. I haven't really made any custom windows before, so I tried to look for like a few good parts to which I could use to realize it. So I used these wooden beams to create like a wall like texture, these small wooden beams, and I used the wider wooden beams to make like base and the top of the windows. And I wanted the windows to be a little pointy, so I used these smaller wooden beams to make like a small tip, a small point on the top of the windows. I'm still figuring out where the beams should be placed. As you can see, I'm just trying to get them in the right spot, extending these beams a little bit by duplicating them and clipping them through the same beam. This way the beam becomes wider and the other beams are like stuck inside the beam. It just looks better from both sides. Time to fill this last area up with rocks to see if the station is really how I wanted it to be. And it turned out pretty nice. I'm really happy with the results. I made like the basic layout of the station. It's not completely finished yet, but I had a general idea of how it would look. I decided to just finish up the area around the queue line by filling it up with more rocks, so I had a better picture of the area. I wanted to make like a archway over the queue line, and these archways exist in nature. I'll show you some pictures in the bottom corner. And I wanted to do the same thing with like the fast pass queue, but I realized this was a little bit too crazy, so I decided to just leave this open, I think. I don't know, I made an archway as well. It didn't really look that bad. I thought I left it open, but I obviously didn't. Just filling this area up with more rocks. I'll speed it up a little bit faster for you guys. I wanted to make sure that the queue line was covered up when you're on the ride, so I'm trying to build it a little bit higher. This area was a little bit annoying because there was a very little room between the ride and the queue line, but I still wanted to have it covered with rocks. So I had to find like the smallest rocks to fit inside that area. But I made it like overhang the ride a little bit. As you can see, I placed a water jet just to see how it looked, and my idea is to make like a waterfall or water jets just coming out of the rocks and have a little bit more water features on the ride itself. These bushes are really just randomly placed. I didn't really think about it, and the plan is to give it a better look in a later stage of the development of this ride, so I can really focus where I want certain cacti to be. This was a little bit of a hard part for this ride, because I wanted to have like a tunnel where the lift hill goes through, but I couldn't place the rocks like too deep underground and stuff like that. And at this point the disable terrain collision tool was still not released. It released like the day after I did this, so I wanted to take like caution. I did not delete too much of the terrain and decided to just delete the whole terrain and place a bridge for the pathway. And as you could see, sometimes you can't really place a pathway across a gap. What I did was I placed the first path at an angle upwards and the second on an angle downwards, and afterwards I delete one of the pathway parts, the bridge parts, and put it back in its place, and suddenly it connects. It's kind of weird, but it worked. So, and just as the last video, this is a lot of rock placement, and it's just because the general theming of this ride, the Grand Canyon like theming I wanted to create. And with the terrain I chose, the grassland map, I did not really have good textures to recreate a Grand Canyon color for the terrain, so I did not really have a choice then other than using these rocks to fill the whole area up. And I could make blueprints for larger parts, but to be fair, I like it when I don't see much repetitive patterns, so I decide to place each rock individually. And it takes more time, but it ends up looking a lot better in my opinion. And because I have to place the rocks following the shape of the ride, I don't really have a much use. I had the idea to place like a water tower and have a cowboy shoot at it, so it started to leak. And over here I'm just trying to see how it looks, and this thing is not going to stay in place over here. But it's just, I placed it just so I wouldn't forget to build it later. Because sometimes I have a good idea, and if I don't build something like this to remember myself of the idea, I will forget it. And it was a fun idea, and I don't think I'm going to build it in this episode. I think it's the episode after this that I'm actually putting the water tower in place. And it's time to start going up the mountain with the rocks. So this is like the bend before the bend right after the last drop of the ride, the big drop. And I will fill this whole drop with rocks up to the top of the mountain. So the biggest part of the rock placement will be finished at the end of this episode, and I'll just fast forward it faster than my usual speed, so it won't take as long, and I'll probably cut some parts of the video as well to make it blend over a little bit nicer. And I still wanted to have like a tunnel at the end of the first lift going up. So up to this point the mountain was open, but over here I still wanted to have a tunnel. And I'll say it again, the terrain collision tool was not released yet, and making this tunnel was pretty hard. Creating the right height of the tunnel with the rocks, and the rocks have a certain height themselves, so you couldn't place them too low but you couldn't place them too high, and it was quite a task, to be fair, but I managed to finish it, and I was really happy with the result. And I'm very happy that there's a disable terrain collision tool in place now, because when you use terrain instead of scenery, there will be less light inside a tunnel. So it really creates a more tunneling feel, I guess. That's the biggest reason I wanted to use as much terrain inside the tunnel as possible. And I wanted to have the rocks low at this part, so when you're on the ride you could actually see the river, and on the other side of the river there will be like this western village. So on the right you will see this western village in the distance. I think it just adds, if I'm building the village, why wouldn't I make it kind of part of the ride, you know? I will put a lot of effort in making the village on the other side of the river, so it would be pretty cool to be able to see it when you're on the ride. I think it adds just a little bit more. So when this ride is finished, it won't really be finished because the background is still empty at this location. But so a on-track ride video will probably be released a little bit later when the village is done as well. So the ride really gets what it deserves, I guess. And placing these rocks inside the tunnel was really a pain because of the camera angles. And I knew I wanted to have like tunnel finish over here, so I made the exit of the tunnel first. And I wanted to make sure that the height of the tunnel was right, so the guests wouldn't bump their heads against the rocks and stuff like that. So that's why I made the exit first before making the rest. As you can see, I really had a hard time placing these rocks, especially because of the camera angles. And if the terrain tool was released one day earlier, I wouldn't have put this much effort in this tunnel. Or if they at least announced that the option will be available, because it was a surprise update, so I didn't know about it. And if I know, I would have started building this ride one day later. And over here the terrain is starting to become so thin that it will simply vanish. So the whole idea of keeping the terrain was kind of wasted. And all my extra effort I put in this tunnel was kind of for nothing. And I was somewhat frustrated, but I was like, yeah, I don't care as long as the inside looks good. And I must say I'm pretty happy with the extra effort I put in, because it made the ride look so much better. And a big advantage of having no terrain in between is I can probably, if it's finished, I can put it on the workshop, and all the terrain consists out of rocks. So I think if I made a blueprint out of this ride with all the surrounding scenery, that it would actually work, but I can actually place it around, if you know what I mean. I'm filling up this upper area of the mountain, and I'm trying to make like a flat area over here in the middle, because the idea I said before with the water tower and the cowboy shooting, the idea is to place like a water tower on top of this mountain over here, and I had to have some room for the scenery, and as you can see I just tried to see if it fit, and that's the reason I kept it kind of flat over there. So finishing up the ride, as I said before, I've just finished this ridge, and I'm just going to fill up the whole mountain, and that's the last thing I'm doing in this episode, I think. I haven't seen me editing the station yet. It's possible that I'm doing that after this, but I remembered I copied like the beam structure over for each layer inside the building. The idea is that there will be shops here, and I'm not going to build them this episode, I'm just filling it up with rocks now, but there will be shops somewhere around this area, because the closest food stand and the closest toilet and the closest drink stand are quite a bit away. They're all the way over at the lakeside village, so it's quite a distance for a park, amusement park. Usually in amusement parks there's like food stands and drink stands on every corner, and toilets in like every part and stuff like it, if you know what I mean. So there will be some food and some drink stands around this area, because it's quite a big walk, especially on a hot day. And this is what I said. I'm just copying over this layer of beams, and just duplicating it on the inside. So the whole roof is supported on the inside. That was like the last thing I did. Let's quickly go over what I've built in this episode. First of all, I've finished the queue line, the rocks, and as you can see, it turned out pretty nice. I'm very happy with the results. I really like this like arch over here. It provides some shade in the queue line and it just looks good. I might add a little bit more roofing at the beginning, at this part, and maybe over here to add some more shade, because now it's very open, and I might just add some roofs above it. The station itself turned out pretty nice, as you can see. I'm really satisfied with how the windows turned out. It took me quite some time to get them right, but they look really good. And on the inside, all the beams are in place. I might add a few beams in this direction, because now I just copied a layer of the front and placed it a few times over here, here and here. So I think I need some more support in the like other direction. And this is the front of the station. And I built this like windmill or whatever it's called, and I'll keep this here. It looks kind of nice. I had my doubts, but I think it adds something more to the building itself. So I finished this bridge. Looks pretty good. And this whole starting area of the ride is pretty much done. It just needs some more foliage, like different cacti and better placement of the foliage, because I just plopped everything down right now and need some adjustments of the foliage. And I made this mountain range. I finished it up a little bit. It looks pretty nice. And as I said in the time lapse, I will add shops in this area. And at first the idea was to place them over here, but that looks kind of weird, so I think the shops will be located here, right before the bridge, like in this area, because the closest drink stall is here and the closest toilet is here, and there's quite a big walk away, so I think I need something over here. It gives me the opportunity to hide the train behind the buildings. And the tunnel over here ended up looking pretty nice. It took me quite some time, but it really looks good. And this is like the upper level of the mountain, and the idea was to make a water tower similar to this one over here, and have like a cowboy shooting and another cowboy somewhere hidden behind the rocks. And I will probably trigger it when the boat passes by, that this cowboy shoots and the water jets activate, so it looks like he's shooting holes inside the water tower. I think that's pretty cool. Not really sure how much time it will take to get the timing right, but I'll see that in the next episode. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. You can subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with the series, and yeah, thanks again for watching and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya!